Hello everyone, Cilantro here, and I am on Soundless Lake here in beautiful Silent Forest, and I wanted to talk to you guys today about fishing in ArcheAge, not like in real life. Fishing comes in two forms in ArcheAge. There's bait fishing and there's sport fishing. The main focus of this video is going to be about sport fishing, but bait fishing is worth talking about because it's a really good way to get your fishing skill leveled up. The first thing you're going to need is a fishing rod. If you hit O and type in fishing in your folio, you can actually see all of the craftable fishing rods listed right here. They all take handicrafts. Each subsequent level of fishing rod takes 10,000 more handicraft skill to craft. If you don't know anybody who's a handicrafter, you're probably going to have to buy these off the auction house, but they're well worth the investment. The bamboo fishing rod will be your rod to use at level 1. You only get 3 days of use out of it, but if you're really dedicated, you could probably hit 10,000 and thus the next rod at that point. The steel fishing rod is next. It takes 10,000 skill and lasts for 7 days. The springy steel lasts for 15 days and requires a level of 20,000. Gilt goes up to 3 full weeks, 21 day use, 30,000 fishing proficiency, and lastly there's the Archeum rod, which is a full month, 30 days of use, requiring 50,000 fishing proficiency. So once you've selected the rod that is right for your skill level, you're going to need bait. For what is so-called bait fishing, or regular fishing if you will, you're going to need bait worms. Bait worms are harvested via bundles if you're lucky enough to own as much land as we do. They're not super hard to get, but basically different seeds can be bundled up into little packages, planted, and then when they're harvested, every single one of them will give you a handful of bait worms. Otherwise, they are purchasable on the auction house. They're not overly expensive, but they are a little bit of an investment, especially considering how quickly you'll go through them. Every time you cast your rod with a bait worm, it's going to cost you 5 labor base. I believe I may actually have a discount. I'm not 100% certain. But all you have to do is equip the rod. It actually takes up your weapon slot, so if you're out in hostile territory, you're going to want to make sure to have your weapons available, weapon and armor, or weapon and shield, or whatever armaments you have, ready to be switched out at a moment's notice. But once you've equipped your fishing rod and you have located some water nearby, fresh or salt water, doesn't matter, for bait fishing, you should have an option highlighted that just says fishing. Now if you right click on this and then left click, it will actually auto fish for you. You can, if you store up 1,000 worms, you can burn through 1,000, 5,000 labor in one continuous action. You can go AFK and take a shower or do whatever you have to do. Okay, so it looks like it's still costing me 5 labor, but eventually I believe that will get discounted at high enough levels. But this is pretty much all you need to know about bait fishing. All you have to do is just have a rod, have some bait worms, right click to auto cast, left click in the water anywhere it'll let you, and you'll be able to acquire as many fish as you have bait for. You're pretty much guaranteed a fish every time you cast out. These fish are actually pretty useful for alchemists. They can be a really good way to level up alchemy, basically by processing them into Dawn Lake light essences. Quite a valuable reagent. So I wouldn't vendor these. They don't sell particularly well, but if you know anybody who's leveling alchemy, I'm sure they would very much appreciate you handing them all the fish that you catch. As far as location goes, anywhere on seawater, salt water is a perfectly fine location to do either bait fishing or, in special areas, sport fishing, which I'll get to here in a minute. You can also do bait fishing pretty much anywhere where there's fresh water. So any rivers you see, any small little ponds or lakes, pretty much all of them can be fished out successfully by bait fishing. Sport fishing is a completely different beast though. Sport fishing is a very highly profitable yet slightly risky endeavor. It is very labor intensive, but it's actually a lot of fun and quite profitable. And in order to do sport fishing, you're going to need 2 things, other than your fishing rod, which obviously you're going to need. You're going to need bait, and then you're also going to need lures. Okay, so I seem to have run out of my bait worms, so no big deal. I am fortunate enough to own a fishing boat. I will espouse the merits of a fishing boat here in just a little bit, but for now I will show you that it does have a vendor here where you can buy all the sport fishing necessities. So if you are on freshwater, you're going to need either chum, which lures carp and electric eels, or chopped squid, which lures arowanas. Those are the 3 types of freshwater fish that you'll encounter. If you are out on the sea, you're going to need chopped roosterfish for sturgeons, chopped sardines for bluefin tuna, chopped pike for sailfish, and chopped mackerel for blue marlins. Once a school has been baited, which I will show off here in a little bit, that school is ready to be fished. They turn into a feeding frenzy and can be fished from anywhere from, I think it's about 45 minutes to an hour. I've never really measured it, but it's enough time to get quite a bit of fishing done. Only one piece of bait has to actually be used per school of fish. So if you're with a group of 20 people, only one of you has to have that. And sometimes if you've already seen some people out on the water who've already baited it, you won't have to contribute anything. And then you need lures. 1 lure per cast based on the rod that you have. So bamboo or steel fishing rods use yellow lures for 20 vocation badges. Green lures, 80 vocation badges, are used for the springy steel rod, which is available at 20,000. Blue lures are used for the gilt fishing rod, which is available at 30,000 skill. And red lures are used for the archeam fishing rod, which is 50,000 skill. So once you've acquired these pieces of hardware, you're pretty much ready to sport fish. So I think I'm going to go ahead and take a look here for some places to fish. So if I check my map, you can find sport fishing locations all around the sea if you really want to go looking. On my server in particular, and possibly on your server as well, there are many fishing raids where you can go out and just, you know, shout in the seas for a fishing raid, or even in faction chat, and you'll get invited and you'll be able to find where other people have already baited some fish and so on. Fishing is much more effective in groups because it's much easier to find other groups of fish while you're in a group, and just generally makes the overall cost cheaper because not everyone has to have their own bait. As far as some locations to fish, Soundless Lake is definitely one if you're East Faction. It's a pretty big lake, and while it looks like, judging by the boats that have been sort of going around right now, there probably aren't any schools of fish out right now. It definitely has a chance to spawn one. Windscour Savannah on Windheart Lake definitely has a chance for those. I've never actually been out, but I would wager that this little ravine here in Haslett probably has it. Has chances to spawn some sportfish locations. If you're in the western continent, I don't know west very well, but I would wager that places like Gwynedd Lake here in Gwynedd Forest probably have some. Maybe even Carcassa Ridgelands has a couple lakes and little ponds here. Could possibly have some locations for sport fishing. You never know about that. Even Hell Swamp. Hell Swamp has a few little bogs and such that may have sport fishing locations. I've leveled there before, and I don't recall seeing them, but I also wasn't particularly looking. Sand Deep even has some watery areas here where you could potentially find some sport fishing locations. Two Crowns has a lake, and Souls Reed also has a few little ponds and lakes too. So plenty of options there. If you are from the west location, you know, it makes a good conversation starter with other fellow fishermen if they've found any locations to do any sport fishing. But from empirical evidence, I know for a fact that if you're East Faction, you can definitely find nodes in Soundless Lake in Silent Forest and Windheart Lake in Windscour Savannah. So plenty of options there. So I think I'm going to go ahead and try to track down a school of fish, and we'll do some sport fishing. I'll show you the ins and outs of it, and hopefully make ourselves a little bit of money. So here we are in Windscour Savannah. Turned out that there wasn't any fishing spots currently available in Silent Forest, but that's okay. Sport fishing locations are visible by the flocks of birds that are around there. If you've been out on the open seas and ever seen flocks of seagulls or whatever kind of birds just sort of flying around a certain area, that is where a group of sport fish has spawned and is available to be fished out. Now this one I've already I see has already been baited by one of these fine individuals here who is currently sport fishing. Because of that, I won't actually need to feed this one, but if this were not turned into a feeding frenzy and it just simply said schooling carp, then I would need to have purchased, in this case, chum, and all you have to do is right-click on the bait in your inventory. It'll bring up a little targeting reticle, and all you have to do is click on somewhere where it turns to a green highlight, meaning that it is acceptable, and as soon as you've thrown that, then that school is ready to be fished. By the way, I am, again, fortunate enough to own a fishing boat, but if you do not, and you're not able to reach into the chum bucket to get whatever you need, you can purchase the exact same things at either a farmer's workstation that you've built on your property, Or, if you are East Faction, Tiger Spine Mountains in the sort of vocation tutorial area, or if you're West, I believe it is in Liliat Hills, somewhere right here around Windshade. Those are the places where you can purchase pretty much all the vocation-related things, but in particular, for this case, it's where you can purchase the bait and lures. If you're not sure what kind of fish you're going after, I recommend carrying at least one of each of these until you kind of learn what fish you like to fish. I will tell you this, that sailfish and marlins on the open sea are by far the most valuable. The amount of money you earn per time invested from sturgeons and bluefin tuna is not quite as worth it as the other two. So generally when I'm out fishing, I skip the sturgeons and skip the bluefin tuna, unless they're particularly close to the coast and I could fish them out very aggressively. Freshwater fish are not particularly valuable either. You're looking at maybe a gold and a half for the small size fish, maybe, I don't know, 3 gold for the mediums and 5 gold for the larges. Not a ton of money for sure, but definitely enough to recoup your costs and also get your initial skills. It is possible to sport fish from level 0. You do not have to have leveled fish already to do sport fishing. It does get a lot easier as you get to higher levels, mostly because of the poles that you'll be able to use. The higher level poles do more damage against the fish, but you can definitely catch small freshwater fish, and I believe even small seawater fish, from level 0. I, however, am actually a level 25,000, hoping to get to 30,000 here soon for another fishing pole upgrade. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and cast the rod out, and I'll talk a little bit about how the actual sport fishing process goes. So, as you can see, the second option is available here, sport fishing. This allows me to cast the rod. You just hit the hotkey for it or click on it, and then click in the water anywhere where the cursor goes green like I just did, and that lets out your cast. You have a couple of minutes here to just sit and relax and enjoy the terrain. If you're out in hostile territory, this is actually a PvP zone. Make sure you're monitoring your surroundings on a very regular basis. But I actually got a bite really quickly. This is what is classified as a small fish, about 19k health. There's 3 sizes of fish that are independent of whatever type of fish there are. There will always be only 3 sizes. The smalls are about 19,000 health, the mediums are about 30,000, and the larges are about 38,000. Not only do the higher levels of fish have more hit points, but they also regenerate more hit points per tick. There's a constant regen of hit points that you have to contest with at any given time. So be aware that the larger fish are going to be much harder to catch until you sort of really start to get to know what you can do and what you need to do. I'll also write up a little guide in the info section to detail roughly what you can expect to be able to catch based on your skill, assuming you have a proper technique. So when you're actually doing the sport fishing, I'm kind of idly doing it here, the fish will have 5 different actions that it will take, and your job is to sort of play, I don't know, Simon Says, based off of those different actions. So whatever icon pops up on the fish's status bar, you have to match that. Now I have mine hotkeyed. You don't have to. You can always just click. Mine are set up in a hotkey configuration that just makes a lot of sense for me. I use the numpad. There's a stand firm left, which I have bound to left on the numpad arrow keys. There's a stand firm right, which I have bound to right on the numpad arrow keys. There's give slack, which I have as the sort of center key, 5 key. Reel in, which is one of the 2 damage abilities, is on 2 or down, and the big reel in, which has an up arrow on it, is on up. Big reel in is where you get the majority of your damage. And all you have to do is just click or hit the hotkey for whatever action the fish is representing at any given time. So moving to the left, I hit the left key. Your character will automatically turn to face the fish. You do actually have to be facing them. And another thing that I think not a lot of people realize is that once you've actually hooked a fish and are fighting it, you can move around. This is not like another game where if you were to move even an inch, you would lose the fish. Now, when you've got your line in the water and you haven't actually hooked a fish yet, you can't move during that situation. You will actually completely lose your current cast. Another interesting note is that the bait that you are using and the labor that you are using is consumed either when you actually hook a fish, or, as I'm getting bumped around by another guy's boat there, or if you fail to hook a fish at the end of your full cast. By using the regular reel in and the big reel in, you're able to weaken the fish to the point where it either gives up or you actually defeat it. The fish flops towards you often, or otherwise just sort of turns belly up, and it is then up to you to go retrieve the fish. You literally have to pick it up as a trade pack, and if you're lucky enough to have a fishing boat, put it into your fish tank holds, or you'll have to just immediately take it away to whatever location it needs to be turned in, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and catch another fish here, which is going to require another green lure. I do not have any extra ones here, so having bought that, now the option comes up. Another note here is the schools of fish are only fishable, again, for like 45 minutes to an hour. If you have caught, or rather if you've hooked a fish, but the fish school disappears, you can continue to fight that fish. But even if you have your lure in the water, if the fish school disappears, you are no longer going to be able to hook a fish. So you might as well just, you can let the entire thing run out so that the labor is expended and you earn your skill, or you can just cancel it. The lure is expended as soon as you put the pole in the water, put the hook in the water, but the labor is not expended, as I said, until you have either hooked a fish or your entirety of your sport fishing time here has subsided. So I'm going to talk about a few little extra sort of techniques that I've used to help me with sport fishing, especially when you're lower level skills. These are some of the best ways to actually really fish. Can't really do them until I actually hook one, but two things that make this a little easier, especially if there are a lot of people around. There's a system wherein you can actually sort of set somebody as a priority target, or as a focus. I believe some other games have called it as a focus. This is called tracking. If you right click on an entity up here as you have it targeted and hit track target, it will bring up a small little UI element here. Sometimes when you're moving around, or if you may have to jump off your boat, or whatever situation arises where you may have to target something else, it can often be very difficult to retarget your fish. So as soon as you hook one of the things you can do is set it as a tracking target. That way, if you lose your target, or otherwise just want to keep tabs on it while you may be doing some other things, all you have to do is just click on that specialty UI element, and you'll be able to get right back to fishing your fish. You have about 30 seconds of leeway where you can do nothing yet still retain your fish on the hook. So if you need to, I don't know, if somebody's handing you a phone you need to grab or something, or if you need to all tab out real quick to mess with your playlist or whatever, you have 30 seconds, so you have a little bit of leeway. As I can watch this other person fishing here, this 30-second timer will continue to tick, and basically anytime you do a correct action, that timer will refresh. If that timer hits 0, the fish gets free. Also, you will not always catch every fish that you hook, just simply by not having done enough damage because your skill isn't high enough and you don't have a good enough fishing pole. Some fish after a while will simply despawn, effectively getting away. So if you randomly lose your fish towards the end of its life or something, don't be discouraged. It's a normal part of fishing. Sometimes they just get away. You can help mitigate that by getting a higher level skill. Certainly one way to do it. So since I haven't actually got another bite yet, I'll talk about the other sort of advanced technique that you can do, and that's what I call pre-firing. As I mentioned, if you can watch this individual's fish here, you can see like right now it's giving the up arrow action. That is the biggest damage opportunity that you have. The big reel in does, I don't know, 3 times the amount of the normal reel in, and none of the other options, whether it's stand firm left, stand firm right, or give slack, do any damage to the fish. So what you can do, if you're not 100% certain that you'll be able to hook a fish, is you can sort of pre-fire the big reel in. So as one of the fish's actions is coming to a close, you can start a big reel in. If it's the incorrect action, like it would have been here, you can just change it. Just tap that ability a few more times, and it'll switch to the other action. But by pre-firing the big reel in, it ensures that you will get a full amount of damage through the entire duration. The actions that you take are a little bit longer than the actions that the fish takes, so by having that prepared, again, you ensure maximum amounts of damage. And every little bit of damage can count if you're doing if you're trying to catch a fish that is maybe a little bit out of your league. You can definitely catch fish that you wouldn't normally be able to with a little bit of luck and some good skill in terms of making sure that you do everything right. So having failed again to get a bite there, my labor was expended and my lure was expended, but that's okay. I still got the skill ups for it. Didn't actually get any money to turn in, but you know, that's fine. Not really a big deal. So while I wait for this to potentially get me another fish, oh, okay, actually, I guess we're going right in. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to track the target. So now I have it tracked. This is actually a medium-sized fish. So with my current skill level and my current rod, I have a pretty darn solid chance of actually getting this fish in. It's going to be a little tough. I have to make sure I hit as much damage as I can, but it should be doable. Also, this place looks really cool when it's nighttime. Look how gloomy it is. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and do some damage here. The action just stopped, so if you heard the sound of the reel, that was me pre-firing the big reel in. I'm going to do it again here. I'm going to pre-fire the big reel in. And there it is. I actually got it timed up properly. So now I'm going to get a full damage session in. There's nothing really much that I missed out on there. One of the things about the way that this fishing works as well is that it's very seldom that you'll actually get the same result twice in a row. I believe it's actually sort of hard-coded in to have a much more rare chance to give you this exact same thing twice in a row. It does happen. Occasionally you get fortunate enough to get 2 big reel-ins back-to-back, but it doesn't always happen. So that being said, if you just did a big reel-in successfully, you should switch to a regular reel-in and pre-fire that instead. You'd be surprised how often you'll jump from a big reel-in to a regular to a big one. And if you're pre-firing all of those, which I missed since I was talking, the amount of damage you can do is quite accelerated. Quite a lot more damage. So I'm actually getting quite a few damage opportunities. I've already got this fish down to a little bit less than half health, which is good. If you watch the hit points very carefully, you can see that this fish is regenerating about 70 per tick. The smalls regenerate around 20 per tick, the mediums regenerate about 70 per tick, and the larges regenerate about 110 hit points per tick. So even with my current amount of damage, it's pretty challenging to catch a large. Mediums still have a chance of getting away if I have bad luck. Smalls are pretty much a given that I'm going to capture them at this particular skill level, but otherwise not too big of a deal. So as soon as I get this guy reeled in, I'm going to go ahead and take my fish into port. I will have a little moment of fishing etiquette to deal with here with this KOS individual on my boat. If you want to maintain good relationships with your fishing neighbors, it's important to respect them even if they choose to fish on your own boat. Bacon as a guild, we tend to not exactly be the nicest people, but when we're out fishing, we do usually try to observe fishing etiquette by not attacking other people, warning them if we're leaving with our boat, and so on. Once a fishing boat has obtained a fish on it in the holds, you cannot despawn it. But as I had mentioned earlier, whenever you are in the process of fighting a fish like I am, you can move. But if you are not fighting a fish right now, as Mr. Ulquiorra is currently just waiting for a bite, he cannot move. If he moves voluntarily, he will actually lose his fish. So I'm basically going to have to either wait for him to... Oh, and there he goes. He actually gets a hook. Either wait for him to get a hook, or use some of the sort of... Oh, I guess he must just be fishing for experience because he immediately let it go. Or I would have to use one of a few methods to push another player around without actually being aggressive towards them. One of them is to use the leap back ability. I forget exactly what it's called. Drop back in shadow play. If you do that right next to another player, it actually pushes them back a little bit. It's considered more polite to do that, to push somebody off your boat if you're leaving, than just taking off without having communicated with them in any way. Another option is to summon your mount and quickly desummon it right next to them. If the mount moves off in the correct direction, it will actually push somebody around as well. In this case, since it looks like this guy is only doing this for experience, I will just probably ask him if it's okay if I leave, just again to be polite. We'll go turn these fish in, and then I'll talk about the process of turning fish in and a few things about the merits of a fishing boat, which there are quite a few. I'm going to go ahead and start getting closer and closer to my fish, as it is likely I will be killing it soon, so I might as well get ready for that. This guide hasn't really covered all the subtleties and nuances of fishing, but there are some things that you'll have to discover on your own, and overall, sport fishing is quite an enjoyable experience. It's nice, relaxing, and fun, but when you're out on the open seas, even if you're just waiting for your for a fish to actually bite, there's a little bit of intensity that comes with sport fishing, because you never know when some other some malcontents can come along and attempt to gank you for your prize. So make sure that while you're fishing, you're constantly looking around. If you see some people who look like they are moving with hostile intent, do not forget to re-equip your weapons before engaging. A lot of people will get overconfident when they're attacking fishermen because they assume that they're going to catch them off guard. But if you actually manage to keep your guard and get yourself prepared, even if it means losing a fish in the meantime, you'll be able to successfully repel invaders. It's very often they will try to get your fishing boat or whatever boat you're on and try to take it away. So be wary of that. All kinds of tricks that people will engage in. So I'm going to engage this gentleman in a nice conversation here. Old Kiora, I am heading back to turn these in. Would you like me to wait for your current cast? Trying to be polite here. I'll go ahead and switch to party view so I can actually see his response. Looks like a few little people are talking here. Wait for the bite. No problem. And there you go. Nice, simple, casual conversation with a neighbor. Maintained a polite interaction with a fellow fisherman. Ulquiorra in particular, just as an aside while I'm waiting for him to finish up, is one of the big fishermen on the server, and so I would not like to make enemies with him, even if we are overall not friendly with too many people. There's a sort of fisherman's code that exists on my server, which is Curios East. So I'm pretty happy about that. I'm happy to maintain those relations. So anyway, having obtained both of my fish, I will go ahead and hop on the captain's chair, make sure there's no one else here, and we're gonna go ahead and head into the fishery turn-in, which is over here, happens to be on the south side of this island. Now the fishing boat is notoriously difficult to maneuver, so it's very important that you take your time when turning. You have to take pretty wide turns. Sudden attempts to correct turning can actually cause your fishing boat to completely tilt over. It is most definitely the least maneuverable boat that I've ever piloted in this game, but its advantages far outweigh its disadvantages for sure. So in order to find places to actually turn in the sport fish, you have to look at, I believe, infrastructure, and there it is, fish stand. Now I happen to know where this one is. Most of the zones that have water sources do have fish stands. In fact, a sign of fish stands is probably a good sign that sport fishing is possible. Hadn't even really thought of that until now. So yeah, right there's a fish stand, so it's very likely that sport fishing will be possible. Hey, I'm even learning something new on my own tutorial. No sport fishing there, no sport fishing there. Let's see here, Dewstone. Gwynedd Forest does have a fish stand there. Nothing in Liliat Hills. Soulsreed has a fish stand there. Two Crowns. Let's see if Carcassa does. And Carcassa, okay. So some of the places that I had scouted out before most definitely do have sport fishing pools, because that's the only reason for a fish stand to really exist there. Otherwise, it would be kind of silly. So I'm going to go ahead and just beach my ship. Doesn't really matter too much since I'm pretty much done with it. So I'm going to go ahead and disembark from my device here. Pick up a fish. Beware the mobs here, of course. I am in my not in my equipment for fighting, so I'll go ahead and do that. Do have to be careful because we're not exactly the most liked guild, so there's a chance that somebody may try to gank us, but gank me while I'm fishing. But basically, you just take the fish while it's on your back to the fish stand. You have two options. You can either turn it into a decor item. You can actually get a trophy of the exact fish that you caught to hang on your mantelpiece if you're lucky enough to be a homeowner. Otherwise, you would normally sell it. This is the medium here. It's worth 3 gold, 31 silver. Not a ton, but, you know, I'll take it, considering we're just mostly, primarily concerning ourselves with getting some skill up. So I'm going to go ahead and be a nice guy and try to actually get this mob off of him real quick. Use my insanely high Skull Knight DPS, which is pretty much 0, and kill these mobs. I don't think he was really in any danger, but we'll still be a nice guy, because why not? And then I'll go ahead and grab my second fish out of the holds here in a little bit. Really wish that my character didn't make such obnoxious noises when I'm using Mana Stars. Ugh. Alright, so flamingos are dead. No big deal. We're going to go ahead and grab our last fish from the holds. I'm not going to unsummon my boat yet because I actually want to show you guys a few of the main features of a fishing boat. Fishing boats are ridiculously expensive. The gold equivalency, although it's not usually gold you'll be using to purchase or assemble the ingredients, is actually about 5,000 gold, which will take quite some time to pay off, but the benefits for large group play are very much worth it. Yeah, Snowbell recording a tutorial. Thanks, though. Let's go ahead and send a message back to them. The benefits of them are quite worth it in the long term. It's a good thing to invest in if you have a guild or otherwise are predisposed to want to do a lot of fishing. If you're really dedicated to this game, it's a good way to do it. The main ingredients are 2 thunderstruck trees, which are maybe the subject of another video in terms of how to get them. They're pretty expensive and pretty rare, and a 250 Gildastar pattern. So in the future, I will likely be espousing the benefits of having actually, doing the Gildastar dailies and talking about exactly how you should be accumulating your Gildastars. So there's sort of 4 main benefits to having a fishing boat. I'll give you the benefits in what I consider to be the order of least useful but still handy to have to the most useful. So the least useful thing is the trade pack storage. You do have 3 actual trade pack storage slots. They're handy. They're not exactly the biggest draw to a fishing boat. That's not why you build a fishing boat. But if you happen to be out in the seas and some people are kind enough to drop by with some trade packs, you can alleviate them of said trade packs and actually have room to store them in addition to all the fish storage. So that is sort of the least useful but still really useful point about owning a fishing boat. The second most useful thing is the chum bucket. Having access to these extra lures and such is really handy. It means you don't have to overbuy and potentially waste some money. You can just grab whatever you need to as you need it, and you're in good shape. Makes it very nice to not have to carry one of each of these different types of baits out on the seas. As I mentioned earlier, I don't know if I actually got into full detail, but sailfish and blue marlins are by far the most valuable fish out there on the open sea. Sailfish, you can get I think 8 or 10 gold from the smalls, up to maybe 15 gold for the mediums, and I think 20 or even 30 gold for the larges. The marlins are closer to 10 gold for the smalls, 20 gold for the mediums, and anywhere from 35, maybe even 40 gold for the larges. So a lot of money in the sailfish and the marlins. So anyway, chum bucket, pretty dang handy. One of the most important things, and probably considered by most people to be the most important things about owning a fishing boat, is the storage. You have room here in the storage tank to store 5 small or medium-sized fish. The fish actually are positioned into 5 different slots. If you kind of see as I'm walking over there, if you see the little exclamation mark, those are sort of the actual places where you place the fish. There are 5 slots graphically represented by 5 different locations there. This person is apparently taking my boat out to the ocean, but that's fine. The most important thing, though, by far, about having a fishing boat is the fish radar. Because if you want to be serious about using a fish radar to make, or using a fishing boat to make you money, you're going to need to be able to track the fish. It looks like there are currently no, as we're taking a turn here, it looks like there are currently no fishing locations available in this lake, which means that one of them had despawned. But if there were, this fish radar would allow me to see them. Now, on a small area like a lake, it's not really a huge deal to be able to identify them. But on the open seas, which have tons and tons of locations where they can be spotted, especially in the North Arcadian Sea here, all throughout this area is the possibility of a vast number of fishing spot locations. Being able to radar those is incredibly beneficial. It really saves unbelievable amounts of time, not just in locating fish schools that are actually worth fishing, but locating fish schools that really just in general. Being able to even locate fish schools is quite a task without a fish radar. You'd really be surprised. I'm sure everybody who's been out in the open seas has seen fish schools and said, okay, this is no big deal, I'll just be able to go out and randomly run into them. But it's always the case that whenever you're looking for something, you can never find it. So having a radar really helps manage that quite a bit. So I believe I covered pretty much everything I wanted to. I talked about bait fishing, sport fishing in great detail, pretty much as I could. the benefits of getting a fishing ship. I'll talk probably in a later video, give some details about how exactly you should go about getting the Guild of Stars around to earn a fishing boat. Fishing boats are well worth it, as are just sport fishing in general. If you don't have the ability to get your own fishing boat, make some friends who have one. Advertise yourself as being available as a friendly fisherman in fishing raids. The more people who are fishing, the more secure your fishing raid is going to be. So team up with your friends and have a good fun time out there in the world of ArcheAge doing some fishing. That's all I have for now. Thanks for watching this video, and I will see you next time.